Welcome to the store. Don't forget to subscribe, and support me.
The world was dying. Where once the lands were green and lush, filled with the hum of life, now only cracked, arid earth stretched as far as the eye could see. Trees, once towering and verdant, stood as skeletal remains, their barren branches clawing at the sky. Rivers had long since dried, leaving behind desolate beds of dust. The cities of man, once gleaming with prosperity, crumbled under the weight of neglect, their people withered and hopeless. And all because the phoenix, the eternal flame of life, had fallen. The legend spoke of a time when the mighty bird soared across the heavens, its wings igniting the skies with warmth and renewal. Every time the phoenix would die, it would be reborn in a blaze of glorious fire, its resurrection breathing life into the world. Crops would flourish, sickness would vanish, and life itself would be sustained. But that time was gone, and in its absence, the world decayed. The phoenix had not been seen for a generation. And those who remembered the tales were few. Among them was Luna. Luna had always been different. Where others saw the failing world and resigned themselves to inevitable doom, Luna had seen an opportunity. She was a scholar, a woman of intelligence and curiosity, and from the time she was a child, the legends of the phoenix had fascinated her. While others dismissed these ancient stories as myth, Luna had believed them with all her heart. Her belief had led her to a life of study, buried in the remnants of a crumbling library, reading texts that few others cared to preserve. It was there she found her purpose. For years, Luna had scoured the oldest scrolls and forgotten tomes, piecing together fragments of the past. The more she read, the more she realized there was truth to the legends of the phoenix. But there was also something more sinister hidden within the ancient texts, a dark sorcerer named Malakar, whose greed for power had eclipsed even death itself. It was Malakar who had cursed the phoenix, stealing its ability to resurrect and dooming the world to its slow decay. Luna's heart had burned with a righteous fury when she uncovered the truth. Malakar had been a figure of legend, long thought vanquished by the forces of good. But his spell, his curse, had endured, leaving the world in its present state of despair. And if Luna's research was correct, there was a way to break that curse. A dangerous way, one that required great personal sacrifice, but a way nonetheless. As Luna packed her belongings into a simple leather satchel, she knew her journey would not be an easy one. The Temple of Ashes, the place where the phoenix had last been seen, was a ruin, lost to time and shrouded in mystery. Most scholars believed it to be mere folklore, but Luna had found a map, hidden in the folds of an ancient manuscript. The temple was real, and it was her only hope. Stepping outside her humble quarters, Luna was struck by the oppressive silence of the city. Once a bustling hub of life and commerce, now only a few scattered souls roamed the streets. People shuffled past her, their faces gaunt and empty, their eyes devoid of hope. They were ghosts of a dying world, and Luna felt a pang of sorrow for them. She wished she could offer them comfort, but she knew words would not suffice. Only action could save them now. As Luna journeyed out of the city, the landscape grew harsher. The barren lands stretched endlessly before her, a sea of cracked earth and broken rocks. She traveled alone, with only the faintest whispers of wind to accompany her. The farther she ventured from the city, the more desolate the land became. The sun, once a beacon of warmth, hung low in the sky, casting long shadows over the empty plains. Luna's heart was heavy, but she pressed on, knowing that every step brought her closer to the Temple of Ashes. After days of travel, Luna finally reached her destination. The temple was not as she had imagined. Instead of a grand structure rising majestically from the earth, the Temple of Ashes was little more than a crumbling ruin, half buried by the sands of time. Its once proud pillars lay broken and scattered, and its walls, once adorned with carvings of the phoenix's glory, were cracked and faded, but despite its dilapidated state, Luna could feel the power that lingered in the air. There was an ancient magic here, deep and powerful, buried beneath the ruin and decay. Luna took a deep breath and stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. She had come too far to turn back now. The entrance to the temple was a narrow archway, half blocked by fallen stones. Luna squeezed through the gap, her fingers brushing against the cold stone as she made her way inside. The interior was dark, the air thick with the scent of dust and age. Broken statues and relics of the past littered the floor, but in the center of the chamber stood a stone altar, untouched by time. Luna approached the altar cautiously. There, engraved in the surface, was the symbol of the phoenix, its wings spread wide in eternal flight. Below the symbol was an inscription, written in a language long forgotten by the world. Luna knelt before the altar, running her fingers over the ancient text, her heart racing. This was it. The key to breaking Malakar's curse. The way to bring the phoenix back. But as Luna studied the inscription, her brow furrowed in confusion. The text was incomplete, fragmented, as if pieces had been deliberately erased. Luna's mind raced as she tried to fill in the gaps, piecing together the meaning from the fragments she could understand. Suddenly, the air around her grew cold. Luna's breath caught in her throat as a shadow fell over the chamber. She stood quickly, her eyes scanning the darkness. She wasn't alone. From the shadows emerged a figure, cloaked in darkness, its face obscured by a hood. Luna's heart pounded in her chest as the figure stepped closer, its voice a low growl. "You should not have come here, scholar." Luna's hand instinctively reached for the dagger at her side, but she knew it would be of little use against whatever this creature was. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her. The figure laughed, a cold, hollow sound. "I am the keeper of this place," it said, "and you are trespassing on sacred ground." "I came to break the curse," Luna said, standing her ground. "The world is dying. The phoenix must be restored." The figure's laughter echoed through the chamber, sending chills down Luna's spine. "You are a fool if you think you can succeed where others have failed," it said. "Malakar's curse is eternal. No one can break it." Luna clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. "You're wrong," she said. "I've studied the ancient texts. I know there's a way." The figure stepped closer, its presence oppressive. "Even if there were a way," it said, "the price would be too great. You would have to sacrifice everything." "I'm prepared to do whatever it takes," Luna replied, her voice unwavering. "I won't let the world die." The figure was silent for a moment, as if contemplating her words. Finally, it spoke. "Very well," it said. "But know this, scholar, once you start down this path, there is no turning back." Luna nodded. "I understand." With a flick of its hand, the figure vanished, leaving Luna alone in the chamber once more. The temperature slowly returned to normal, but the weight of the figure's words lingered in the air. Luna turned back to the altar, her mind racing. She had come too far to give up now. The world depended on her. She would find a way to break the curse, no matter the cost. Taking a deep breath, Luna knelt before the altar once more. She closed her eyes and began to recite the ancient incantation she had spent years memorizing. The words felt foreign on her tongue, but as she spoke them aloud, she felt a surge of power ripple through the air. The ground beneath her began to tremble, and the symbol of the phoenix on the altar began to glow with a fiery light. Luna's heart raced as the power of the phoenix filled the chamber, but she didn't stop. She continued to recite the incantation, her voice growing stronger with each word. Finally, with a final burst of energy, the ground beneath the altar cracked open, and a plume of fire shot up from the earth. Luna stumbled back, her eyes wide as the flames grew higher and higher, filling the chamber with an intense heat. The fire roared with life, and for a brief moment, Luna felt the presence of the phoenix, powerful and eternal, but just as quickly as it had appeared, the fire began to fade, leaving behind only ashes. Luna stared at the altar, her heart sinking. The phoenix was gone. Before she could process what had happened, the ground began to tremble once more, but this time, it wasn't from the power of the phoenix. The entire temple shook violently, sending stones crashing down from the ceiling. Luna's breath caught in her throat as she realized what was happening. Malakar's forces had found her. Luna's heart raced as the walls of the Temple of Ashes shook violently. Dust filled the air, stones crumbling from the ceiling, and the entire structure seemed ready to collapse. She knew there was no time to hesitate. If Malakar's forces had found her, there was only one thing she could do: run. With a last glance at the now extinguished flames of the phoenix, Luna bolted toward the narrow entrance she had come through. Her footsteps echoed off the stone floor, blending with the sounds of the temple's imminent destruction. Behind her, the ground continued to shake, but what worried her more were the heavy footsteps closing in from outside. Malakar's dark magic tainted the air, she could feel it in her bones. Whatever was waiting for her beyond the temple walls, it would not be merciful. She emerged into the twilight, squinting against the dim light. The barren landscape stretched before her, the cracked earth somehow looking even more lifeless than before. But she didn't have time to dwell on it. At the edge of the temple ruins stood a group of Malakar's minions, shadowy figures in dark cloaks, their faces obscured by hoods, their hands crackling with arcane energy. Luna's pulse quickened, and her mind raced. She was outnumbered, unarmed, and still weak from the ritual. For a split second, fear threatened to overtake her, but she pushed it aside. She hadn't come this far to fail. With a deep breath, she summoned what little strength she had left and began to chant. The ancient incantation rolled off her tongue, and in an instant, the ground beneath the cloaked figures trembled. A shockwave rippled out from her, sending two of them stumbling backward. It wasn't much, but it gave her a few precious moments to run. She sprinted across the barren land, her lungs burning with every breath. The minions regained their footing quickly, and she could hear them chasing after her. They were faster than she had expected, their dark magic propelling them forward like predators stalking their prey. But Luna wasn't without her own tricks. As she ran, she continued chanting under her breath, weaving together small defensive spells to slow her pursuers. The ground erupted in small bursts of flame and tremors behind her, forcing the minions to dodge and weave as they closed in. Yet, despite her best efforts, they were gaining on her. Just when Luna thought she couldn't run any longer, a figure appeared on the horizon, a silhouette against the fading light. For a moment, her heart leaped with hope, but then doubt set in. Was it friend or foe? As she neared, the figure stepped forward into the dim light, revealing a familiar face. Soren. Relief flooded through her at the sight of him, but there was no time for a reunion. Soren took in the scene in an instant, Luna's exhausted state, the dark figures pursuing her, and the crumbling temple in the distance. Without a word, he drew his sword, its blade gleaming in the low light. The first of Malakar's minions reached them, lunging toward Luna with dark magic swirling in their hands. Soren moved like lightning, intercepting the attack with a powerful swing of his sword. The clash of steel and magic reverberated through the air as Soren fought to protect Luna. "Keep moving," he shouted over his shoulder, his voice strained as he parried another attack. Luna hesitated, not wanting to leave him behind, but she knew Soren was buying her time. She had to escape. She had to complete the ritual. With a nod of reluctant understanding, Luna turned and ran again, her body screaming with exhaustion. Behind her, Soren fought valiantly, his sword cutting through Malakar's minions with precision and skill. But even as he struck down one enemy, another would take its place. The dark sorcerer's forces were relentless. Luna's vision blurred as she pushed herself forward, her legs burning, her mind racing. The Temple of Ashes had been a dead end, the phoenix's flames had extinguished, and she had failed to fully break the curse. But there was one last hope, a final piece of the puzzle she had uncovered in her studies but had been too afraid to face until now. The Cavern of Ember. Legends spoke of the cavern as the birthplace of the first phoenix, a place where its life fire had been ignited for the very first time. If she could reach it, if she could find a way to harness that primordial flame, there might still be a chance to save the world. But reaching the cavern meant navigating treacherous terrain, and she was running out of time. She glanced back once more. Soren was still fighting, but he was growing tired. The minions were closing in on him. Her heart twisted at the sight of him struggling, but she forced herself to look away. Soren had known the risks. He had made his choice. Luna ran harder, the sky grew darker as she made her way toward the distant mountains. The journey to the Cavern of Ember would take her through dangerous territory, a land scorched by ancient battles and filled with creatures twisted by dark magic. But Luna pressed on, her determination fueled by the knowledge that this was the world's last hope. Hours passed in a blur of pain and exhaustion. Luna's mind was clouded with fatigue, but she could see the faint glow of the mountains in the distance. The Cavern of Ember was close. She stumbled forward, her feet dragging across the rocky terrain, her vision swimming with every step, but before she could reach the safety of the mountains, a wave of dark energy slammed into her from behind, knocking her to the ground. Luna gasped as the wind was knocked out of her, her body crumpling in a heap. Pain shot through her limbs, and she struggled to push herself up. When she looked up, she saw him. Malakar, the dark sorcerer, stood before her, his eyes gleaming with malevolent power. He was tall and gaunt, his pale skin stretched tight over his sharp features. His robes billowed around him like shadows, and his presence radiated an aura of pure, unbridled evil. "You have been a thorn in my side for far too long, little scholar," Malakar said, his voice cold and cruel. "But it ends here." Luna's heart pounded in her chest as she struggled to her feet. She was exhausted, drained of magic, and completely outmatched. But she couldn't give up. Not now. Not when she was so close. "I won't let you win," Luna said, her voice trembling with defiance. "The phoenix will rise again. The world will be saved." Malakar's laughter echoed through the air. "You are nothing but a fool, chasing fairy tales," he sneered. "The phoenix is dead, its power mine. You think you can defy me? You are nothing." He raised his hand, and a wave of dark magic surged toward Luna. She barely had time to react, throwing up a feeble shield in an attempt to block the attack. But Malakar's power was too great, and the shield shattered like glass. The force of the blow sent Luna flying backward, her body slamming into the ground with a sickening thud. Pain radiated through her, but she refused to give in. With a trembling hand, she reached into her satchel and pulled out the vial of essence of life she had retrieved from empty Ignis. The final piece of the ritual. Malakar's eyes narrowed as he saw the vial, his expression turning to one of fury. "You dare use that against me?" Luna's fingers trembled as she uncorked the vial, the liquid inside glowing with a soft, golden light. It was the essence of the phoenix, the last remnant of its power. She knew what she had to do. There was no other choice. With a final breath, Luna drank the essence. Instantly, her body was engulfed in flames. The fire burned bright and hot, but instead of pain, Luna felt a surge of power unlike anything she had ever known. Her body lifted off the ground as the flames consumed her, her skin glowing with the light of the phoenix. Malakar screamed in fury, his magic lashing out toward her, but it was too late. Luna was no longer just a scholar, she had become something more. The power of the phoenix flowed through her, its life fire reigniting within her soul. With a single, powerful gesture, Luna unleashed the full force of the phoenix's flame upon Malakar. The dark sorcerer's screams echoed through the air as the fire consumed him, burning away his magic, his body, and his very essence. In moments, he was nothing but as. The last of the flames died down, Luna collapsed to the ground, her body weak and trembling. She had won. The curse was broken. The phoenix was reborn, but as Luna lay there, her vision fading, she knew the truth. The world would live, but she would not. With her final breath, Luna whispered a single word, Phoenix. Far above, the newly reborn phoenix soared into the sky, its wings blazing with life. And as it flew, the world began to heal.